Okay, so I've got another sponge. This is our tongue oil blend. Let's see if we can get enough on that. Just rub it into the timber. Just a little bit goes a long way. Nearly there. You can definitely see the difference. So over here on the right, we've got the beeswax. Then here we've got the polyurethane, water-based acrylic. Then we've got the tongue oil blend, which is here. And then the teak oil, which is a little bit more brown. It's got that brown yellowish tinge to it. So for me, I don't really think that this or this is appropriate. That's actually changing the colour of the wood, which I don't really want. I don't think that's the appropriate finish for our timber because of the fact that you'll have to apply that finish to the piece every year, really, just re-wax it, whereas one of these here, the polyacrylic or the tongue oil blend, I think would be the more appropriate finish, but yeah, we'll see how it turns out once this dries. So here's our piece. Sanded the edges with the belt sander, and now we've got to continue to hand sand it and clean all the edges up, as well as the surface, as well as these edges here as well. Do front face and also back face. So how I'm going to do that is using these different grit sandpaper. So this one here is a 80 grit, so it's a little bit more coarse, so that will get rid of any lumps and bumps out. Then we've got a 120 grit. I may or may not use this depending on how much lumps and bumps I need to get out. Then I'll definitely use these two, which is a 180 grit, which is pretty fine. And then I've got the ultra fine 400 grit sandpaper, which I'll be using to give it a nice finish. So we're going to start with the 80 grit, and we're going to sand this edge here. What I'm also going to do is round off the edge, because I don't like to have sharp edges. Some people do, some people don't. I definitely don't like to have sharp edges, and this is a smooth flowing piece, and I don't want any sharp edges on this piece. Cool. So this is Flow. It's looking really good. It's got one coat of tongue oil blend on it. It's after bringing up the grain really well, I think, and it's given it a really good coat for protection as well. What we need to do now is put on a second coat and then a third coat. It takes about 24 hours between coats to really, I suppose, set. And the first coat obviously soaks into the wood the most. The second coat, you don't really need that much oil to give it for the second coat and the third coat as well. But between coats, you rub off the excess oil with just a cloth, and that just gets rid of any of that extra oil that's not really going to soak into the timber. Now, between coats, what's really important as well that you do is sand it back again, because there might be a little bit of splinters that come up off the timber after that first coat. So that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to sand it back, cut it back a little bit, then we're going to oil it a second time, and we're going to repeat that process then a third time tomorrow. This is our tongue oil blend in here. It's kind of like a darkish clear colour, and how we apply it, you'll see in a moment, is by just using this sponge here. Cool. Now, just to let you know, with this project, I'm really excited about the outcome. It's turned out really well, and each coat of oil that I apply, 3 in total, it's getting a little bit darker bit by bit, which is fantastic, because I think it just needed that, because the grain is coming out more and more. There's little sections here, I don't know if you can see here in the camera, that is darker than the rest obviously, and that's really bringing that out. It's looking really beautiful. Now, I oiled this probably about 20 minutes ago, so now what I've got to do is, with a lint-free cloth, so it doesn't stick into the splinters of the wood, that we need to wipe it down. So let's wipe this down. So the reason why we're wiping it down is to get rid of any excess oil. I'm imagining that there's going to be quite a bit of excess oil on this, because I put a lot on, just in case it needs to soak on. So you can see already, there it is. We'll just wipe this off. Now, although the oil dries on into the timber, it still needs a fair bit of time to cure. So once it dries, it needs to cure, and that usually takes up to 2 weeks. Once you finish the last coat. So that's one thing with oil. Now you can still handle it, and you can still do things with it, but you can't like do things like stand on it and do all of that. So I think even it would be fine in this instance to use or to deliver this piece within the next 2 weeks to hang it, because it's not as if you're going to be it's going to be going through aggressive use, we'll say. But you still get that kind of smell. It's a beautiful smell. It's a linseed oil, and it's a nice smell. But that smell doesn't really leave until a good few weeks after it's oiled. And I think that's actually a pretty good thing. Now it's going to be kind of sticky and tacky for a wee while. For about 1 day, 24 hours. And it'll dry off. We'll give it one last coat of oil tomorrow, and then it'll be done. Well, I've got to get the suspension kit as well. I'm talking with Lighting Direct, so they're yet to advise me. I've asked. They're going to advise me on which kit that they'd recommend, because they've got a number of different kits, and it's kind of important to get the right one. I don't want to be buying the wrong one. Now, it would be great if I could just walk into the store and buy it, because anyway, yeah, when you're buying online, you have to make sure that you get the right thing, otherwise you have to send it back, and it takes a lot longer than you think. Anyway, so there we go. I think that's good enough, because even if I don't get everything, that's fine, because I'm going to be cutting it back tomorrow. I'm going to be sanding it back using the 400 grit sandpaper, which is pretty fine sandpaper. So when you handle this, it's going to be pretty smooth. It's going to be soft, I suppose. Won't be any sharp angles on this. Perfect. So that's worked really well. I used another piece of cloth this before, and oh god, the fibres just got everywhere. So that's much better. Now, one last thing I wanted to say, which I can't remember now. Can't remember. So one more coat, and then we're done, except for the suspension kit. But, oh yeah, what I wanted to say is, this is super light. It is so light, I could just hold it with one finger. It is so light, which is really cool. It's really minimalistic, but at the same time, it's got a pretty amazing pattern and flow to it. So I'm really excited to actually show this to you in person. Okay.